Alright. Howdy. My cowboy? What the hell? Whatever. This is Jesse from Baited Gaming. I'm here trying a new thing. This is Jim from Baited Gaming.
What's going on, guys?
This time we're gonna do the light. Got it this time. Success. Light natural 3-star monsters that are relevant. We're gonna talk about a little bit. Because I specifically remember when I first started, I was unsure about a lot of the monsters, to keep them, to punt them, to eat them, throw them out a window, whatever. I wasn't sure, and I probably fed a lot of monsters I shouldn't have. I know me and Jim had a conversation a while ago about how we fed Gildong before he got buffed, but then he opened like 6 of them, so it doesn't matter at this point. Good to go.
Not at this point.
Yes. So, natural 3-star light monsters. Let's get it. Alright, first one we're going to talk about is Neil. Neil's adorable. That's the only reason you build her. Right?
Yeah, she has uses in certain stages of TOA. Like, she's a decent 3-star replacement for Chloe. You know, if you don't have a Chloe, this is a pretty good replacement.
She is a little different than Chloe in that she could do a specific monster. The one stage that I know she's relevant on is the Artemil stage because of the dark monsters. Sorry, the light monsters. You use it on, say, like a tank like Veramos or some other dark tank. You make him invulnerable, is it invincible for 2 turns, whereas Chloe does 1 turn, and then it makes it so they'll always target that dark monster, and it's just never going to take damage. So you kind of cheese your way through some of those boss levels. So that's pretty much her only use. You build her speed and as much tankiness as you possibly can. Next monster we were actually talking about before we started recording, Kabila. We were talking about the differences between Kabila and Bernard. Jim can kind of talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so Kabila is a great 3-star monster. She is the fastest attack bar buff in the game besides Frigate. But, you know, obviously Frigate is a 4-star, 4-star dark monster, and we all know how hard those are to obtain.
Yep.
Where Kabila has a base speed of 120. So, now, again, this is only relevant for super high level arena when you're, pushing 300, 310, 320 speed on your monster. You bring her for the sole purpose of outspeeding an enemy Bernard and then cleaving your way through their defense.
So speed doesn't matter, just as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah, swift, anything else doesn't matter as long as you have, you need to have, again, for her to be relevant, plus 20 speed substats on every rune that you have, and obviously a 6-star speed rune in the 2 slot.
Next one we're going to talk about, we'll talk about it shortly because it's sort of relevant. I've seen Teon used in PvP because of research. It's also a secondary reviver just in case. I've seen it used in Lucian teams where you research the Lucian, and then in some crazy scenario like single Lucian teams, if he dies, then you have the ability to revive him and then research him again at some point. So I've seen him used in that. That's pretty much the only way I've seen him. He's an okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a bird.
Bird is an okay reviver. Could be used early game. Just because there's not many relevant revivers early game. It's like Teon, and if you get lucky and open like Brienne, but talking 3-star monsters, Michelle, but Michelle is a very confused monster.
Yeah, but Teon is one of those monsters that you get at the start of the game just by playing through. So, just having a reviver within your arsenal that early in the game is useful. Obviously, once you advance to the game where you have relevant 4-star monsters that do similar things, a lot of them do them much, much better and more efficiently.
The next one we'll talk about, I don't even know where to begin.
This will be the first 20 minutes of this video.
There you go. Most people watching this video know that Bella is one of the best monsters in the game. You can use her pretty much everywhere. Dragons, Giants, Necro, because she's a light tank, so she can tank the 3rd wave for your earlier Necro teams. I used him in TOA, I use him in PvP.
Yeah,
pretty much use him anywhere. As fast as possible, and if you can get him on Violent, you get him on Violent, but until you get him up in over 160, 170 speed, I'd stick to Swift because you know really having him like violent on 130 speed is kind of a detriment. I'd rather have him at 170 on Swift. I don't really think I need to say anything else. Skill Bella up. Bella should be one of your first 3, 4, 6 stars, maybe, probably 3.
Yeah.
Will be used for a while. There you go. Nothing much else to say about that mon. Oh, you probably want to get about 30, 40 accuracy, even early game, because you really want to stick to defense buffs and remove the attack buff on the giant.
The defense break.
Defense break.
There you go.
Well, oh yeah. He knows what I'm saying. The next one, I don't think you've built this monster yet, so.
I have him 5-starred. Obviously, I don't have any runes on him because we're still in the stages of growing our accounts through farming guilds. But this monster is just amazing. A light tank that you can build so many different ways, and his passive skill where he can only take 1/5 of the damage of his max HP. Just makes him so useful in so many defense-based comps. Higher up, when you advance through the game, you will see him often.
Yeah. Plus, he never skips arm day. Like, never. Literally never. But he definitely skips midsection day.
Yeah, he has no core whatsoever.
No. Like, he was, like, rowing and just, like... and he was like, well, I don't need that anymore. I just got arms for days. Good to go. And the other thing, like, the reason he's so hard to kill is because of this. He increases his defense and gives himself immunity for 3 turns. I think it goes down to 4 turns, and then increases your attack bar. You get out of here. You get out of here. Cats are trying to invade. Not allowed. And then the first skill also brings 2 potential debuffs with the stun and the taunt. Like, such a versatile monster for PvP. I think it's more of a Guild War monster. So one of those, like, you don't want to build him early. You can build him Vampire. I think defense, crit damage defense, or speed defense. One of those, I think it would be fine. Next one we'll talk about it quickly because there's not much really to talk about with Shren. A lot of people build him because the second skill is the same as Kahli. The big difference you have here is Shren does not have the self-attack buff, does not have the invincibility of the third skill. Shren cannot glance, though, because it's a light monster, so you're not going to glance on wind, obviously, where Kahli would. But here's the big difference. You'll notice 392, 475. There's a big difference there. The 2 speed is negligible, but that's a significant difference in attack. So if you were to choose one or the other, I would probably build Kahli. I have Kahli, and I love Kahli. I think Kahli just crushes with that second ability.
Yeah, Kahli is a great mon because, and again, this is a problem that is seen on so many different levels, is the availability of fire damage dealers is really only on the high end of the Nat 5, the Nat 5 train. There really isn't a 4-star mon in the game fire unit that does the damage that Kahli can produce. So a lot of people that haven't had a fire Nat 5 that's a damage dealer will default to building Kahli, or or Shren. They do very similar things. Kahli just a bit better.
The next one we'll talk about is Ahman. Don't build Ahman.
Yeah.
The thing I always say is when you get runes that are good enough for Ahman to be really good, Ahman is not really good anymore.
Yeah,
so.
Ahman really is one of those trap monsters that, like, early into the game, there's a lot of content out there on the internet that tells you, Ahman is one of those units that's a core unit, and the game just has progressed past Ahman's usefulness. You really don't need him to, supplement things in the early game. You can pretty much move right past him with a well-built Bella.
Yeah. Most of the time in the early game, you only need one healer, and Bella is just so much better in pretty much every way.
Yeah.
So don't build him on. The other one, it's not in the same boat, but is another monster that if you look at most of the early content, maybe videos or documentation, everybody's like, build Eshir. Eshir's insane. I'm not saying Eshir is bad, but Eshir is by no means like super overpowered must build if you get him. Really easy, like every 3-star, really easy to skill up. And I always talk about how much I love tanky DPSers because his third skill does damage based on his max hit points, and he absolutely crushes Theomars.
Yeah, he is the definition of a niche mon, but he falls into the same category as Ahman when you have the runes for him to be what he's meant to be. You're already at a stage in the game where his usefulness has come and gone. Like later on in the game when you're able to farm Necropolis B10 successfully, over and over and over again and not failing the runs to get the rage runes that you need to make Eshir that one-shot Theomars killer. Most of your units are going to be able to stand up to a Theomars, and you'll just create guild war offenses that navigate around it successfully.
Or you'll for instance, I open Ethna. Ethna is just much better at doing what he does because Ethna has the type advantage and will just crush Theomars. The one thing that I'll say, and I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, is this is to make him, I think we'll call it balanced. They just should, that first skill has to do damage based on max hit points. I think all the werewolves, pretty much all the werewolves do their hit point monsters. I just don't. This first skill is so bad, just does HP recovery. So nobody's going to listen to this. Well, nobody from Com to us will listen to it. But I think that would actually help the werewolf family as a whole, is just giving that first ability, deal more damage based on hit points. So if you are going to build a shear, like Jim said, rage, hit point, crit damage, hit point, speed, crit damage, hit point, if you can get a bunch of hit point subs on him. He can also be built violent too. The thing about Eshir for me is he's actually kind of useful early game. Like if you're just building he could be that really cool +1 in your Giants team, or say you're I don't really want to build Bernard. You're he gives the speed buff, he brings a bunch of things, he can remove the beneficial, so he could be a +1. He could be decent early game.
Yeah, and I mean there is something to be said about having that tanky. Again, the same thing we just said, a tanky DPS monster early in the game. Eshir does fit that role. If you need monsters later in the stages of farming scenario to get your Veramos pieces, a lot of early game players just don't have the monsters to farm Aiden or Runar or Chiruka, where if you have good enough runes on your Eshir, he can be that solo farmer. The runs are going to be slow, but they're not going to fail. A lot of people can be like, oh, I have 25 to 30 rep monsters that I can farm this and then I'm done for the day, and that's a really poor feeling for a newer player when you have the ability to farm it only a certain number of times, so you're just capped out at 30.
Yeah. So I mean, Eshir is one of those monsters you can build early game, can be useful. One that is not good early game, at least in my opinion, is Lyn. We were all happy Lyn got a buff. Lyn's buff is actually really cool because all 3 of her skills now do max hit point damage based on max hit points. Most important stat for her is crit damage. You want her to have a bunch of speed, but because all her damage is based on the enemy's max hit points, you want her to have as much crit damage as you possibly can. I know there's a lot of videos going around right now about her, and she did 1 million damage to this, and she does a lot of damage. The thing I'll say is she's not good early. You keep her, you'll skill her up as you go. She's way better in speed runs. You build her speed, crit damage, attack, and then you just get as much crit damage as you can. You could put her on rage, you put her on violent, whatever it may be. Obviously a really easy monster to skill up because you're not going to skill up other Amazons. Well, I guess you could, but now that they got buffed. Yeah. You got Lyn yet?
I still have not opened the Lyn.
Ooh, got him. Got one. We'll talk about Darion very shortly. If you have Diaz, don't build Darion. If you, for some reason, don't have Diaz, Darion is an okay replacement. He does sort of the same thing because he mitigates damage with his third skill and with the 15%, and he brings an attack power debuff and then the defense break. And you could front row him with 6 revenge runes and just as much survivability as possible. If you have Diaz, don't even consider it because Diaz is just better. To me, he's better in every way because he has 4-star stats, plus he brings the leader skill, plus he does a few I guess, rarer debuffs in the heal block, and I think he does attack break and defense break in the second skill.
Yeah.
So, so I built a Linda. Don't build Linda. She's cool. She has double AoE, type neutral, but she's really underwhelming. That's all I'll say about her. Next one we'll talk about is my boy, Teon from Dragon Ball Z. He's got the eye on him. Oh no, that's wrong guy. He's super drunk, which is awesome. He's really good to bring to parties. You know, he really livens the place up. I like him. I like him to bring him karaoke. I can't ever understand when he's singing though. He is really an interesting monster. You would think Drunken Master, is no way this monster is going to be relevant at all. But I saw a few videos online about him, and he's really cool. Don't build him early, because he's probably less interesting early. I built him for raid, and we had a raid we actually did the other night where like I put 3 DPSers, including him, and I did like 52% of damage. The thing about him is he needs insane runes because he pretty much needs every stat but accuracy. We were all really skeptical because, I mean, when a monster just looks this ridiculous, it's hard to take it seriously, but he's actually really good because the first skill ignores defense and weakens attack power. The second skill heals based on your attack power, and you're going to be building them with attack power. And then the third skill heals on the damage you do, and it heal blocks. So it's
a team heal.
Yeah, it's a team heal. So both of these are actually team heals, which really helps because you want to be healing every turn. It's just hard because he really needs every stat. He needs speed, he needs attack. You want him to have crit damage because you want him to be able to crit rate and crit damage because you want him to do a bunch of damage with this skill, but you want him to also survive. So he needs hit points, defense, and resistance as well. I guess the only thing he really doesn't care that much about is resistance, but he still probably wants some resistance. So he's a really cool monster. I would only build him late game.
I would say his most important sub-step, obviously, you're building him as a DPSer, so attack, crit damage are the main stats that you want to focus on, but his HP is really lacking. So if you can get some high HP subs on him, definitely would benefit him because you're going to bring him in as a supplemental damage dealer in raid. Mm-hmm. You know, not everybody has Xiaolin, not everybody... the Water Kung Fu Girl Xiaolin, or the Fire Rakshasha, which is Hua. Those are obviously the two best DPSers that are, you know, floating around in R5, R4. But this guy is a cool 3-star replacement that you can utilize in raid.
I would never say to replace if you have those two because those two are just the king of DPSers.
Oh no! I didn't mean to replace, but I'm just saying as an option if you don't have those.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about it in a previous video. If you don't have those two, Ardella is another one. But I think I'll come out with a raid video. We'll talk about raid a little bit more. Yeah. The next one I'll talk about for a sec is Dona. Dona, I was working on building because I want to test Dona because Dona's actually pretty cool. It's a front row cleanser for raid. Removes all the harmful effects. You gain 15% attack bar for everybody gets 15% attack bar, and then additional 5 for every harmful effect. So there's literally turns where everybody's stun has debuffs, and Dona's like, let's do this. And everybody's at full, and then everybody gets to go. And obviously, it's kind of unfortunate in raid because anything that does stuns or dots is completely useless. So, like somebody like Annavel's such a great raid monster, but first skill you're like trying to put him to sleep, and the monster's like, nah, that ain't. I'm wide awake, man. I just had a cup of coffee. So your first skill, stun, doesn't work, unfortunately. But the second skill actually does two debuffs: the attack speed and the defense break. So it's actually pretty good. And I think when you get them fully skilled up, it goes down to 2 turns. So it's actually not that bad. So front row raid, the thing I will say is there's so many other cleansers that are just better. Kona, Lisa, Annavel, monsters that only Jim opens. Miang. I'm trying to... What was the light guy you open? Amarna. Those are all better options. Even Raviti's that's my dude. Love Raviti. There are definitely better options, but if you for some reason have none of those options, you've never opened a Kona. But he's cool because he can front row, where Kona has a lot of hit points but lacks in defense. And the third skill is pretty unique. So useful. Once again, raid, more of a toy testing monster. The last one we will talk about before we head away into the night is my man Driller. I feel like I want to build this. I feel like I built, what's his name? Bulldozer, just because of his sweet hair. Look at that. It's just like, he's ready to go. Nah, I wish that was the reason. He's another one. He's a tanky DPSer. He brings up look at those fists. How are they smoking? I feel like he should see a doctor. He's another one. Defense and hit point based damage dealer. You have a Driller?
I do.
Not built though.
Nah, he's just chilling at 5-star for now. I never really found a use for him. Like he is a cool monster, but his runes, the way you need to build his rune set is just odd. So he's more of a speed HP monster, but you want him to do damage. So like you're looking for crit damage and crit rate. So you want
to build him like defense, crit damage, defense, and have hit point subs plus a little bit of speed in there.
Yeah.
So he's another one that's a hard to build monster.
Yeah, a lot of these Light Mons that we're talking about, like a lot of them have really cool ability sets that you don't see in the normal attribute type monsters. But and again, this is more of a problem that's addressed at Com to us directly, is a lot of the light monsters and dark monsters that they have out there just have the most confusing ability sets combined with their attributes. So you have an HP based monster that's looking for defense subs and crit damage. So like, which way do you go?
The crit damage I'm alright with. It's mostly the fact that it's an HP based monster that every one pretty much is defense based damage. So it's a little confusing. And I think they should really, I mean, this is a topic for another video, but they should maybe have more different sub types. Like it should be defense, support defense, support hit point, support attacker, hit point damage dealer, and things like that.
Well, I mean, the subtype doesn't necessarily matter so much, but it would just be like either a recalibration of the base stats or just a change in the way that the monster does damage based on his ability. So like you said, like this monster does all defense based damage, but he has defense of 345 at a base, where his HP for a 3-star mon is actually quite good. Now, again, you're going to see Driller, he's used in some kind of necro
he's
team.
used in necro teams, and then he's used a little bit of in PvP because the third ability actually does a considerable amount of damage.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, he does he have the same ability as Bulldozer, his third?
No, he does the 4 and then an additional 2 and an additional 2.
Yeah, but
so he could do 8.
Yeah, but is that Bulldozer's third ability?
No, Bulldozer's the one that he stuns himself when he goes full. He
right.
goes full body.
Yeah, but he attacks twice and does.
And he
defense.
ignores defense.
Yeah, ignores defense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Bulldozer's better.
the main theme that I think really I want people to take away from some of these videos is that a lot of these monsters, especially the light dark ones that are hard to get, you want to keep them just in case they do get buffed. I always keep one storage. You have plenty of storage. Just put them in there. If they get buffed, then you use them. And also, eventually, you might get to the point where you want to build these monsters. So
you don't want to talk about the Light Grim Reaper?
Do I want to talk about the Light Grim Reaper? He Prom he wishes he was the Dark Grim Reaper.
I mean, he does way different things, but
yeah,
I actually got this monster really early into the game, and I really loved using him. He's got 2 AoEs. You can build him on Despair if you want to add a third AoE kind of stun. I actually built him on Violent, and he does a lot early game. You know, he's good as a 4th member in a TOA team. He's good in Secret Dungeons for early farming on Secret Dungeons. All the Grim Reapers besides Thrain and Hemos, because they do different things. You know, Thrain and Hemos are the daughters of the group, whereas like Sath and Prom have double AoEs, so they can really help you accelerate early game secret dungeon farming, which is a crucial part of the early game. Getting to the point where you are able to run multiple of the same unit through one secret dungeon is a big turning point in the game. I know
when you're trying to skill up like a monster, or trying to farm a monster for fusion or whatever it may be.
Yeah, we're just trying to help the chat have less of 39, 40.
Oh my god, 39 out of 40.
Just
everybody's got 39 out of 40. If you had the double
AoE, you would have all 40.
Yeah. So that's it for the light monsters. Hopefully I'll have time tomorrow. Maybe Jim will join me again. We'll do the dark monsters as well tomorrow. If I have some time, I'd like to stream, just kind of see if anybody wants to hop on, ask some questions, help some people out. So that's it for now. Relevant light natural 3-star monsters. We'll finish up with the dark, and then I'll start rolling through the 4-star monsters. So once again, I'm Jesse from Beta Gaming,
and I am Jim.
You guys have a good night or morning or afternoon, summer,
whenever you
winter.
Yeah.
Have a good winter.